Chapter 13. 7 days and over 300 miles later, they crested the top of the final mountain, looking out over the small village Harley had called home. Until moving to New York weeks ago, Harley hadn't seen much of the world outside her home state. The closer they got, the more Harley regaled them with details about her childhood and the surrounding area. For as young as Tamara was, she seemed to understand how important it was for Harley to share with them. Tasha knew it was panic over what they would find, a reality that Harley refused to acknowledge. Working their way down the trail Harley had directed them toward, Tasha kept a tight grip on Hot Dog's leash. She didn't like how quiet he'd been since they'd set foot on the path. He was tense about something, but hadn't yet alerted to any obvious signs of danger. As the edge of the forest came into view, spilling out onto a 2-lane road, Tasha lifted her hand for the 2 women behind her to stop talking. It was easy to hear the people walking down the road after spending days with each other in the forest. Her heart raced as she tapped Hot Dog to keep him from growling. She already knew the newcomers were there. They didn't seem to be on alert or in a hurry, though, making Tasha presume they were from the area. Tasha motioned for Harley to come closer to the road as a man and woman appeared. Harley gasped and grabbed Tasha's arm. "That's Mr. and Mrs. Enright. They run the corner store in town. My parents had coffee with them all the time," Harley whispered. Before the young woman could bolt from the forest and reunite with the 2 people, Tasha held her back. She hadn't seen the obviously exhausted man stumble from the woods a few hundred yards from where they were hiding until the woman Harley identified as her mother's friend pulled out a handgun from the back of her belt. Tasha's grip tightened on Harley when Mrs. Enright raised her weapon, pointing it at the man straggling in their direction, and pulled the trigger with a smirk on her face. Tasha pulled her shocked young friend back into the forest. Her hand wrapped around Harley's mouth to muffle the screams of horror she knew were coming. They retreated back a good 20 yards before Tasha let go of her. Harley stumbled away from Tasha, struggling to catch her breath, before hunching over and puking alongside the path. Tamara went to her new friend and pulled back Harley's hair as the woman quietly emptied her stomach. I can't believe Mrs. Enright did that. She's such a nice lady," Harley stammered. "Just keep breathing, Harley. We're going to figure this out. How far is your parents' place from here?" Tasha asked. "About a half-mile across the road," Harley muttered. "Why did she do that, Tasha? Why would Mrs. Enright kill somebody like that?" "I don't know, sweetheart. People are losing their minds right now. We need to keep our heads on a swivel and get to your parents' place. Can you keep it together for me, Harley?" Tasha asked. Harley nodded as she rose, wiping the vomit and tears from her face, as it dawned on her that the home Harley remembered was not the same one they were returning to. They needed to move quickly. From the casual nature with which the elderly woman had shot the stranger, Tasha had to presume the town had already formed a functioning militia, and it didn't look like they were searching for newcomers to join the force. While Harley would be accepted, the others would not. Tasha wouldn't risk losing her packs, pet, or life to visit Harley's home if the danger seemed too great. Turning back and heading right for Kentucky wasn't an option, though. Not if she wanted to keep Harley alive. She had to make sure the girl was safe with her parents and accepted into the fold at the very least. Once she'd seen that, they'd leave as soon as it was safest to do so. All hopes of a peaceful night's rest were gone. What do we do?" Harley asked. "Your parents' place. Can you get us there without being seen?" Tasha asked. Harley nodded. "Just cross the road and go straight through the woods. It won't take us long to get there. My parents have got to be terrified." Tasha doubted her parents were scared, but said nothing to her young friend as they crept back out to the road. As far as she could tell, there was no one else in sight. Tasha knew it was one thing for Harley to see a body as they rushed by it in the city, but seeing a man who had been alive moments before was different. Tasha rushed them across the street, making a beeline for the safety of the woods on the other side. They didn't stop once they crossed. Tasha incessantly whispered for Harley to move faster. She had no choice but for Harley to be in the lead. Tasha didn't know where she was going. It didn't take long for the small homestead to come into view. Immediately, she knew something was wrong with the situation. Tasha realized it before Harley and quickly grabbed her friend to keep her from running through the clearing to her old home. The back door of the house was standing open, yet she hadn't seen anyone venture in or out since their arrival. Harley's parents wouldn't be so careless, given everything that had happened recently. "What are you doing?" Harley asked as she jerked her arm free. "That's my folks' place right there. We made it." "Let's just stay hidden for a few minutes first. You saw what happened earlier. We can't be too careful right now," Tasha said. Harley scoffed. "Seriously? Do you think my parents are going to shoot us? The safest place for us right now is in that house." "I wouldn't be so sure," Tasha muttered. "I haven't seen your parents yet, but that back door has been open for a while. Does anyone else live with them? Or would they have left it open and gone somewhere?" Harley paled instantly as she shook her head. "That's what I thought. Let's plant our feet here for a bit and see if anyone goes in or out. If we don't see anyone, we'll head that way." "I can't believe this," Harley stammered. "What if something happened to them? What if the village turned against them or something terrible like that? I swear someone hurt them." "We have no reason to think like that." "Oh, please, we saw that crazy bitch earlier," Harley growled. "That man was obviously an outsider. Your parents are lifelong residents of this town. Just because I want to be careful doesn't mean I think the worst happened. Don't forget, it's not just you who's traveled here. You've got 2 other people who are outsiders to them. I'm trying to keep all of us safe." "Fine," Harley hissed. "But I'm not going to wait in the woods forever, especially if my parents are in danger." "If they are in there," Tamara muttered from behind them. Harley turned and glared at her. But Tamara wasn't fazed. The teen girl shrugged and went back to petting Hot Dog. Tasha knew Tamara had her own opinions about what they should do. She made no effort to hide her view that they should keep moving to Kentucky. Tasha wouldn't press on until they'd given Harley a chance to find her folks. "What? I mean, if I were them and this crazy redneck town decided to go all martial law, I'd be getting the hell out of here too," Tamara said. "My parents wouldn't leave, not without me." "We have to get over there, Tasha." "I know, just a few more minutes." "Do you see anything out of the ordinary?" Tasha asked. Harley glanced around and shook her head. "No, it just looks like home. If we didn't know about the EMP strike when we showed up here, I'd say there was nothing wrong at all." The conversation fell silent as they watched the homestead for any sign of movement. Tasha kept a close watch on the forest surrounding them as well. She didn't trust anyone, especially not those who were so quick to kill without mercy. In a time when the nation needed to band together, humanity was slipping further away from the traits that separated us from the animals. The very idea of killing another human for any reason other than self-preservation was utterly disturbing to her. Granted, what she might think of as mortal danger, another might not agree. Chapter 14. They moved quickly after waiting another 15 minutes in the silent woods. Tasha knew Harley was both terrified for her parents and angry over what seemed to be happening. All Tasha wanted to do was verify the elderly couple was safe. Then she and Tamara would be hightailing it out of West Virginia with hot dog at their sides. If Harley and her parents wanted to join them, that was fine. They wouldn't be waiting around for morning before leaving, though. Not after she'd seen what the people in town were capable of. They crept in through the open back door, and Harley gasped. Tasha quickly reminded her that they needed to be as quiet as possible, but she could understand the poor girl's shock. It looked like the house had been ransacked long before their arrival. There didn't seem to be any signs of struggle, though, a small but encouraging detail. As they looked around, Tasha saw no blood or other alarming conditions. "This isn't right," Harley whispered. "My parents, they wouldn't just take off without leaving me a note or something." Maybe they did, and whenever this place got tossed, the note got lost. I'm sure they didn't expect people to raid it, at least not in a town like this. I knew leaving New York that I'd never see my place again. "Oh, God, what if they went to look for me in the city? What if we're too late?" Harley asked. "Let's keep looking, okay?" Tasha said. Harley nodded and slank back out of the small kitchen to look around upstairs. Tamara was sitting in the front of the fridge on the floor, Hot Dog happy being petted between her legs, as they both watched Tasha. She knew what the girl was thinking. They needed to get out of there as soon as possible. The farther away from the crazed locals they could make it before dark, the better. Once Harley was out of earshot, Tasha crouched on the floor next to the pair. "I need you to poke around. Grab anything you think we could use. But do me a favor." "Don't let Harley see? I know. Is she going to be okay?" Tamara asked. Tasha sighed and shrugged. It wasn't a question she could answer, as she watched the girl crawl to her feet and quietly start snooping around the main floor. Hot Dog followed after her, happy as long as he could hear or see his owner. While Tamara worked, Tasha quietly moved to the top floor of the small house and poked her head into the first room she came across. It was obviously Harley's parents' bedroom. It, too, had been gone through and robbed of anything people thought they might be able to use. From the bedding to the toiletries and wardrobes, the house had been picked clean. Tasha found Harley sitting on her bare bed, tears streaming down the young girl's face as she sat, staring at the Bible in her hands. Tasha sat down next to her, placing a comforting hand on the woman's shoulder, despite having no idea what to say. Harley shook her head in dismay as she sniffled and wiped away the tears. "They took everything except the one thing that might actually be able to help them. Now's not the time to throw away faith." "I'd like to think the Bible was left behind on purpose, you know? Like this is God's way of showing you that no matter what, He's always going to be there for you," Tasha offered. Well, she didn't advertise her faith. Tasha believed in God and knew there was a reason for everything that happened, even if she wasn't privy to the plan. As a writer and journalist, though, Tasha never pushed her religion on others. Still, at that moment, it seemed to be what the girl needed to hear. Harley gave her a weak smile. "What kind of people steal like this? Even my mother's jewelry is gone. What good is that going to do someone now?" Harley asked. "I don't know. I think people might still have hope that this is going to end soon." "Not my parents. They would know how bad it was." "Why would they leave, though? I mean, it didn't look like they were forced out or anything, you know?" Harley said. "Yeah, it didn't look like there was a fight." Harley sighed and opened the Bible as she shook her head again. She flipped through a few pages as Tasha rose. They could give her a few more minutes to grieve before the group had to set out again. Every second they were there, the risk of running into trouble grew. Behind her, Harley gasped. Tasha spun around, looking for whatever danger her friend had seen. To her shock, Harley was still looking at the Bible. "This is new," Harley said. "Wait, what? What are you talking about?" Tasha asked. "On the front fold, this inscription here, it's new. It wasn't there the last time I visited over Labor Day weekend. That's my father's handwriting, Harley muttered. Tasha quickly read the inscription, and her heart sank. Harley, I know you'll find a way to be with us. We'll keep watch for you on the heavenly horizon. See you in paradise, our sweet girl, Tasha whispered. Harley, I'm so sorry. What? Why? Don't you see? This is amazing news. This means they made it out of here before all this looting and chaos started. They knew I'd come back here and left me a clue. Tasha cocked her head. Harley. Paradise, Missouri, Tasha. They went to my aunt's place, Heavenly Horizon Homestead. It's this organic farm that's really neat and already a little collective of hippies. Of course my parents would go there. Now it makes sense. They had to know that people here were nuts, Harley said. We have to get to them. Relief coursed through Tasha as she let out the breath she didn't realize she'd been holding in. Everything was starting to make sense. Harley's mother would have made sure anything they wanted to take with them was brought, leaving behind the Bible for their daughter to find, and the house unlocked for anyone who needed supplies. Knowing they could leave West Virginia with a positive vibe made Tasha's heart soar as she smiled at her friend. All right, I'll make you a deal, Tasha said. I need to get to Kentucky to check on Elijah. I'd like to get Tamara settled in there as well. After that, I'll go with you to your aunt's place so you aren't traveling alone. Harley smiled, bounding across the room and wrapping her arms around Tasha in appreciation. Tasha smiled and hugged her back, though the show of affection wasn't something she was accustomed to. Thank you so much, Harley whispered. I would be dead or lost without you. You don't know how much I appreciate all of this. Listen, if you want to repay me, then help us get the hell out of this town as quickly as possible, Tasha replied. We're not safe here, and I think you know that. Harley broke away from her and nodded. She smiled with the Bible clutched in her hands when they went downstairs to join the others. Tasha quickly explained to Tamara what they had discovered and the plan to keep moving toward Kentucky. The only thing Tasha didn't share was her plan to leave the young woman at the homestead with Elijah once they safely made the journey. The road was no place for a girl her age, no matter the brutal life she'd left before the strike. As they gathered up their gear and prepared to set out again, including a small book bag found hidden in a closet for Tamara, Tasha found herself praying for a safe journey. She carried the weight of knowing the others relied on her. But the disheartening stop in the village had cost them more than just time. She'd been counting on making a few trades to keep them moving. Now, though, their trip would take longer. Tasha would need to forage and hunt along the way to keep their nutrition up. Hot Dog couldn't eat the protein bars the others could barely survive on. He would need fresh kills. When the others were packed and her own bag was secured, Tasha opened the back door and carefully gazed out. While the path ahead seemed serene and peaceful, she knew better. Once she was sure the coast was clear, she motioned for the others to follow her as they set off into the forest again. When they reached the thick foliage, Tasha saw Harley turn back and look one last time at her home. A single tear moved down the woman's cheek as she turned back to follow the others. Chapter 15. When they set up camp 2 days later, Tasha had every intention of staying put for several days. She knew they needed to restock their supplies. Plus, both Harley and Tamara were noticeably exhausted from the harsh conditions and quick pace Tasha was making them keep. She knew the closer they got to Davenport, though, the more likely they were to run into people. The city was one she was familiar with, having driven through it dozens of times on her way to and from the homestead in Kentucky. Still, it was a bigger metropolis. People would be fleeing the city into the surrounding woods for safety, especially those who were transplants and not yet part of the tight-knit world. With a population of just under 40,000, Tasha wanted to get through as quickly and quietly as possible. She didn't know what they'd be stumbling into. The time in the woods, setting up a camp, and getting rest would do them an enormous amount of good before heading for the unknown. "Ladies," Tasha said, "I've got a bit of a surprise. We've been making such good time. I thought we'd set up camp here on the river for 2 nights. I need to do some restocking and—" They both let out squeals of delight, enveloping her in thank yous and hugs before excitedly starting to set up the camp. She couldn't help but smile as she watched and listened to them making plans for their temporary home. When everything seemed to be to their liking, they joined Tasha near the small circle of stone she created as a fire ring. "So what's for dinner tonight?" Tamara asked. "I know we've still got a few of those MREs left, and they'd be 10 times better than the power bars." Tasha chuckled and shook her head. "Tonight, we are going to have a real meal. We've been working on identifying what plants you can eat and what you can't, right? So why don't the 2 of you find us a salad, and I'll catch us some fresh fish?" Harley's stomach growled. "That sounds amazing. I just wish we had some ranch dressing." "Or Italian," Tamara added. "Why don't you 2 go find us the fixings, and I'll poke around in the bags. I bet I can come up with a little something for dressing," Tasha said. They both gasped, quickly jumping up and setting off with the smaller book bag to fill with things for salad. As she called after them to be safe and watchful, she rose and started down to the creek with her small pocket-sized tackle box. As she watched several bass swim by, she smiled. It was going to be a feast fit for kings by the time she was done. Hours later, long after the others had gone to bed, Tasha sat outside the camp and looked up at the stars. Hot Dog was full and happy, having spent the afternoon racing between where Tasha was working on dinner and the girls the salad. She stroked his head gently as he lay beside her. "Don't worry, boy," Tasha whispered. "Everything is going to be okay." He gave a low growl, one she knew wasn't from any pending threat. Hot Dog was an incredibly vocal dog in everything he did. From playing to protecting, he had an opinion. Beneath her hand, she felt his stomach gurgle and knew it was from the change in his diet. Thankfully, nature provided a means for him to use the restroom whenever needed. Had she switched him to a mostly raw diet in the New York high-rise she adored, it would have been another fiasco altogether. As it was, making sure he was fed was her only priority, even if it gave him tummy rumbles. "What do you think?" she asked the pooch. "Should we risk passing through Davenport and hope for some supplies, or just avoid them and make a beeline for Elijah's?" At the mention of her godfather's name, Hot Dog's ears perked up. She couldn't help but chuckle, knowing just how the dog felt. She was anxious to get to the homestead and see Elijah. While he was a stubborn old man who wouldn't let anyone touch his land, he was still alone, and it scared the daylights out of her. One elderly man with a few shotguns he hadn't used in years was not going to stop someone hell-bent on taking his property. Situated amongst the Kentucky wilderness, the Hartford Homestead was a little slice of heaven on earth. She'd spent her teen years building coops, greenhouses, and sheds for tools and livestock. Over the years, as her time was split between home and New York, Elijah had slowly started to decrease the number of animals on the property. Some passed away from old age, some were butchered, and others traded for supplies. Still, she knew the dozen or so animals he still had would be valuable in trade. What worried her was their ability to be pilfered by looters. She knew Elijah wouldn't back down if a group threatened his land or livestock, just like she knew people would kill the old man to take what he had. Her stomach lurched, making her want to pack up camp immediately and get back on the road. As she listened to the others' rhythmic snoring in the tent, though, Tasha knew they had to stay put. No matter the danger Elijah was in, she couldn't risk Tamara and Harley's innocent lives to get to him. It was the halfway point in their journey, a triumph that should be celebrated. But instead, all she felt was the lingering weight of the task in front of them. Never in her life did Tasha think the years of prepping she'd done, the training she'd undergone. Did Tasha truly believe the day would come when her life's work would actually be put to good use? Yet they were there, surrounded by forest, and fighting for their lives each time another human appeared. Tasha started to doze off as she stroked Hot Dog's coat. The cathartic movement put them both at ease as she dreamed of the time before the EMP strike hit. She'd been so upset with Harley for giving their driver the wrong address. Now it seemed like such a trivial thing to warrant an attitude. Had she known then what was coming, she'd have told the young woman not to worry about it or bother with the interview. Were the others okay? Did the infamous Mr. Davis make it out of the building, or did he go down with his ship? She had so many questions, but no answers. If they could get a hold of a crank radio, she knew with some work she could get it up and running. Perhaps then someone would know what was happening with the outside world. Until that time came, they were plunged into uncertainty along with the rest of the world. Her stomach lurched again at the thought of what was happening. There was no telling how long the chaos would last, but she wasn't naive enough to think it would be short-lived. No, it would take months, if not years, for the country to recover. Even then, they would still be in the dark ages until the technology could be recreated. With so much chaos in the nation, she wondered if the government was even still a thing. Not once had they seen or heard a vehicle, airplane, or any other indicator that the nation's government was still standing. Outside the camp, something rustled in the brush, drawing Tasha to her feet, as Hot Dog alerted in a low growl to something in the forest. Her body tensed as she watched the darkness, grateful she'd shut off the light and given her eyes a chance to adjust back to the pitch black of the night. Suddenly, there was a loud snap and the squeal of a snared animal at one of her stations. Tasha charged forward, flicking on her light with Hot Dog at her side. Not only did she not want the animal's noise to wake the others, but she didn't want the creature to suffer. The duo trudged through the forest to where she'd set up one of the traps and quickly found the trapped creature, burrowing itself beneath a downed tree. Tugging on the lead line, the slight snowshoe hare struggled as it came into view. It was no bigger than an apple, barely a few weeks old. Tasha sighed and quickly pulled the fishing line off the caught creature's neck before setting it free. It wasn't worth the time it would take to skin the animal. Plus, Tasha didn't have the heart to kill such an innocent creature in its youth. As they headed back to the camp, she again checked their perimeter. There would be no peaceful rest for Tasha until she knew her surrogate father was safe, the same as the others in her care. Chapter 16. Days later, they crossed into the once bustling city of Davenport. Immediately, Tasha could feel they were being watched. She glanced around and noticed curtains moving in half a dozen houses. She could handle people's curiosity. After all, without electronics to keep them glued to their rears, they had to find something to amuse themselves. As long as none of the doors opened, she wasn't worried. House after house, they jogged down the sidewalk. Occasionally, a fenced yard housing a dog or two would make Hot Dog curious. But otherwise, he hadn't alerted to any danger by the time they reached the road, separating the neighborhoods from the businesses. It was a strange shift. She knew people looking down on them from the towering buildings didn't have the same comfortable nature as those in the houses. Apartment life was different. You were always fighting for space and never far from your neighbors. Tasha kept the pace brisk, not slowing for a single instant. The road ahead of them sloped some as a small locally owned garage came into view. The door on the work bay was open. It had obviously already been scavenged, but it would provide them shelter for a moment's rest before continuing. They jogged into the garage, quickly taking cover, as Harley and Tamara caught their breath. Tasha kept a watchful eye on their exit, looking for signs of someone following them. "Can we stop for a few minutes?" Tamara asked, breathlessly. "This place is a ghost town. I think we're safe." "There are people, and a lot of them," Tasha muttered. "Okay, but they aren't chasing us or even poking their heads out of the windows. That's a good sign, right?" "Not necessarily. It means they're scared," Tasha said. "Good," Tamara grumbled. "We do look like a scary group, just saying." "They aren't scared of us, Tamara. That's why Tasha is so worried. Something here is spooking these people. My guess is we don't want to stick around and find out what it is," Harley said. "That's right," Tasha said. "Very good, Harley. My guess is this town already has its own form of law and justice. We need to keep moving, and fast. Every second we are here, we're in danger." Tamara appeared frightened but determined. Tasha smiled at the girls. They both seemed to have caught their breath, and with it came a new determination. The pair understood the dangers they'd need to watch for as they made their way across town. She looked out over the road again, the silence making her stomach churn. Giving a nod to the others, Tasha guided the group down the street, but only for a few yards before she ducked into an alley to the left. While it didn't provide much cover for long, they could make it a few miles before being forced to cut over onto the main road again. It was impossible to take a direct route through town without breaking into people's homes and businesses. That method would draw more attention than it was worth by a long shot. When they reached the end of the available alley, Tasha turned to the right. Before stepping onto the main road, she held up her hand for the others to pause behind her. In the silence, she heard Hot Dog's low warning growl, and her heart started to pound. Seconds later, Tasha heard men talking around the corner. From the sound of it, they were just a few blocks down in the direction the group needed to go. "Shit," Tasha hissed. "What do we do?" Harley asked, her voice a hushed whisper. "You two stay here and keep Hot Dog close. I'm gonna go take a look." Harley frowned as she took the leash from Tasha. "Tasha, maybe we should just go back the other way. I'm not a fighter." "Everything is going to be fine," Tasha whispered. "Just stay here and watch out for the other two, okay?" Tasha jogged to Harley and turned her around so she could get into her pack. She'd taken great care when packing them both. Digging around in the front pocket, she felt the circular object she'd been hunting for. Pulling out the small mirror, Tasha zipped up Harley's bag again and moved to the front of the group once more. If the men were watching their direction, it was better to have her hand shot off than her head. Tasha crept forward, her breath slow and steady, to avoid making much noise. Holding up the small mirror, she turned to brace herself against the wall before turning the mirror to show the image on the other side of the wall. Just as she'd suspected, two men with rifles, not far from where they were hiding. Neither looked particularly frightening. Their round bellies and obvious discomfort beneath the warm sun told her they weren't accustomed to working outside, or any form of exercise whatsoever. She had to come up with a plan. If nothing else, she needed to get the girls out of the city and as far away as possible. Pulling the mirror back, Tasha moved to the others and returned the compact to Harley's book bag as she slid hers off and handed it to Tamara. They both looked terrified, but Tasha knew it was the only way to get them safely past the posted guards. She gently took Hot Dog's leash from Harley. "Listen, Tamara, I need you to carry my pack. I'll take yours. It doesn't have nearly the supplies mine does." "Why would she need to carry it?" Harley asked, already knowing the answer. "You aren't going anywhere. You promised you'd stay with us." "Harley," Tasha whispered, "the only way we're getting out of here is if those men are distracted. I need you to take the map and get Tamara as far away from here as possible, okay? I've already highlighted the route for you guys." "No," Tamara snapped. "We're not leaving you behind." "You aren't, and I wouldn't ask you to either. I'm gonna catch up with you. I just need to lead those guys away from the road long enough for you to get through. Up ahead about 200 yards, the alley picks up again, and you can follow that nearly to the edge of the city," Tasha said. "Please, Tasha, there has to be another way," Tamara stammered. She shook her head. "Just stay here, count down 3 minutes, then make a run for that alley like I said. Do not stop for anyone, do you hear me? If something happens, yell, and I'll let Hot Dog loose." "I knew we should have robbed a gun store before leaving New York," Harley muttered. 3 minutes, got it?" Tasha said. Tasha took a deep breath. She didn't want 2 scared young women running around with a loaded gun. It needed to stay a secret for now, despite the danger they were in. Wrapping the leash around her hand, she signaled for Hot Dog to stay at her side as they stepped out onto the main road. As much as she wanted to glance back at the others, she knew she couldn't risk giving away their location. Thankfully, neither man noticed her step out into the road. She made it several feet before either was alerted to her approach. As expected, they were surprised, but didn't reach for their guns. Why should they? As far as they were concerned, she was a lone woman who posed no threat to them. One of them smiled in a manner Tasha didn't like at all. The way his eyes moved over her body made her skin crawl. She mentally gave him the nickname Creeper. "Well, now, what do we have here?" the first man asked, in a thick country tone. He gave her a toothless smile, his gums now rotting from the thick, dark brown snuff in his lip. He would be Yeehaw. "Hey, fellas," she said with a smile. "Aren't you a cute little thing? I don't think I've seen you around town before. Where are you from, sweetheart?" Creeper asked. "Oh, I've got people all over," she replied. "Sounds like you're just roaming then. What's a pretty little thing like you doing all alone?" Creeper asked. She chuckled and stepped off the sidewalk, slowly making her way across the street as if she were trying to coyly flee. "I'm not alone, friend. I've got my pooch here, Hot Dog," Tasha replied. Yeehaw snorted. "You sure don't look like much, with winter coming. I suppose he'd make for a warm meal, though." Tasha ground her teeth together, her jaw clenching, as she tried to keep up the facade of being frightened. They'd made it across the street, and by the numbers in her mind, she had a little more than a minute to get them to face her and away from the others. She glanced away from the men as she stepped onto the sidewalk. Creeper stepped to one side of her, while Yeehaw stayed planted in his spot on the street, just inches from the curb. She knew they were pinning her against the storefront in a move meant to intimidate. They were playing right into her plan. Chapter 17. "Well, I don't think I could ever do that to Hot Dog. He's my friend. Listen, fellas, I'm not looking for any trouble," Tasha said, letting her voice crack to sell the act. "Well, now neither are we, sugar. The fact of the matter is, though, this here is a private road, and there is a toll to be paid." "Oh, well, maybe you guys could give me a free pass? Seeing as I don't have anything, I suppose I could give you Hot Dog's leash, but—" "That's not what we're wanting, darling," Yeehaw said. "I'm afraid we can't let you go without paying the toll, either. We can't have word getting out to the outcasts that we've gone soft, now can we?" "The outcasts?" she stammered. "Yeah. The people who weren't fit for the new order. Damn, you aren't from around here. Well, let me educate you a bit, sweetie. If you don't got nothing to offer in our town, you get the boot." "Well, there you go then. I've got nothing, so you should probably just kick me out," she said. "Oh, you got something to offer, all right," Creeper said. Now, Freddie, let's not be monsters here, Yeehaw said. She didn't like the way the conversation was going. While she'd anticipated the pair would give her a hard time, their haste would force her hand sooner than Tasha wanted. Though she didn't move her eyes, she held her breath as she watched the others sneak out of the alley. They just needed another 30 seconds to make it to the next alley. Tasha just had to stall the men a little longer. Yeah, Freddie, Tasha stammered. Let's not be monsters. I'm starting to like you, man. Yeehaw chuckled and shook his head. We'll give you an option, little lady. You can give us your dog, or you can give us a good time. She swallowed. Come on now, I thought you weren't trying to be a monster. That's why I gave you options. We don't want you running around telling people we didn't give you a choice in the matter, do we? Tasha glared at him. Right, because God forbid you admit to rape. Now that's a nasty word for such a pretty mouth, Creeper growled. The girl slipped into the second alley. Harley looked back at her for a split second, before Tasha saw Tamara pull her out of sight. It was good they had each other. Knowing they were safe, at least for a moment, gave her the time she needed to deal with the situation at hand. The men weren't going to back down, and she sincerely doubted if handing over Hot Dog's leash to them would change their intended outcome. They wanted her, and no one would stop them from taking what they lusted after. Fine, she whispered. Just let me deal with my dog first. The two men high-fived each other and stepped back as she knelt down to Hot Dog's level. As she scratched him, she scoped out a path. 2 doors up, there was a sidewalk that cut between the buildings. It was a dead end, but it would save her from being spotted by any potential lookouts. Tasha knew the men would use the alley to cover their crimes. While she petted Hot Dog, she carefully unhooked his leash and wrapped her arms around him. Find Harley, Tasha whispered to him. When she stood again, Hot Dog bolted away from the group. Both of the men spun around to watch him dash across the street. Panic gripped her. She couldn't let them see where he was going. Letting out a trilling laugh, she grabbed the men's attention, just as Hot Dog turned to break for the alley. He was safe with the others. Now the only person to worry about was herself. It was still a dicey situation, though. Moving carefully, she inched her way toward the alley. Yeehaw grinned. Looks like you're pretty eager there, sweetheart. I just want to get this over with. I've got 4 more important things to take care of, Tasha growled. Creeper snorted. Ha, look at that. Seems our little sweetheart is thinking about being tough with us. Now ain't that something? You just keep working your way to that alley now, Yeehaw muttered. She did as he asked, but didn't turn her back on the 2 men. Something in her gut told her the second she did, they'd be on her. When the narrow alley opened up behind her, Tasha continued to back away from them, luring both men into the alley. While Tasha took no pleasure in hurting someone, she wouldn't let them get what they were after. If they did, it would be over her dead body. Tasha's mind raced through all the self-defense classes she'd taken over the years. That accompanied by the knives stashed in her belt, tucked beneath her shirt, and the one in her boot, gave Tasha a healthy dose of confidence. It came as no surprise when Creeper made the first move. He grinned at her as he carefully lifted his shotgun strap over his head and leaned it against the wall. Tasha smiled back at him and crouched down. She enjoyed knowing he'd regret setting down the gun in a few minutes. When Yeehaw followed suit, Tasha felt like she had luck on her side. Their plan was obvious. They'd both lunge for her at the same time, believing they could overpower her. She'd been watching them, though, and knew her speed and wit surpassed their own by leaps and bounds. It was Creeper who opted to attack first, lunging forward with no grace or speed. She was able to quickly dodge away from him, landing a blow to his leg as he grunted. His buddy watched and chuckled, yelling encouragements to his friend. Creeper glared at her. His cheeks flushed with embarrassment and rage. When he attacked her the second time, she wasn't as kind, looping back around him and landing a hard blow right to his testicles with the steel toe of her boot. He screamed out in pain. She'd shown no mercy and was confident at least one of them had ruptured as Creeper doubled over in pain and dropped to the ground. Tasha grinned, a mistake she instantly regretted. The moment of gloating cost her the upper hand, and she didn't see Yeehaw making his advance until it was too late. For a man his size and shape, he moved with a surprising amount of speed. His thick, sweaty paw wrapped around her left wrist as she tried to flee, the angry grip crushing her bones as she yelped. Twisting around, Tasha pulled the blade out of the small of her back with her right hand. On instinct alone, she plunged it into the man's neck. Blood spurted out of the wound as she retracted the blade, coating her upper body. Tasha couldn't think about what she'd done. She had to get the girls to safety. Whether it was the shock of watching his friend stabbed or the adrenaline, something in Creeper gave him the willpower to stand. Immediately, he stumbled in the direction of his weapon, 20 feet away. Tasha knew she couldn't let the man live, especially not if he was part of a larger group. He'd seen her face. He would come looking for them. She sprinted forward and cut him off before he could reach the shotgun. There was a look of enraged fear in his eyes. The world wouldn't miss a man like him. She drew a deep breath as he backed away from her. "You stupid bitch! I'm gonna kill you for what you done to Jimmy," he hissed. Tasha shook her head. "You should have waived the toll, friend." 9 minutes after she'd left the girls in the first alley, Tasha was jogging back across the road as she stripped off her coat and used it to wipe away the blood on her face and arms. The white t-shirt made her stick out like a sore thumb. She needed to get to her backup jacket as soon as possible. When she ducked down the alley and saw it was lined with trees, shrubs, garages, and trash containers, her heart sank. Anything or anyone could be hiding there. Tasha steadied her breathing and let out a series of 3 sharp, quick whistles. Instantly, she heard Hot Dog's bark in reply, quickly followed by the bounding ball of joy appearing 20 yards ahead of her. As the girls emerged behind him, relief coursed through her racing heart. Chapter 18. "Holy crap, lady. We were starting to freak out. We heard screaming and—" Tamara's voice trailed off, the color leaving her face as she looked Tasha up and down. Tasha knew she had to look terrible, but there wasn't time for them to talk about it. They had to get out of Davenport as fast as possible. If the men she'd killed had friends lingering around, and she was almost certain they did, then it wouldn't be long before someone noticed they were missing. She'd left the guns behind, not wanting to give the group another reason to come after her foursome. "We need to move, and I mean right now," Tasha whispered. "Tamara, grab my other jacket out of the bag for me, would you?" The girl nodded and quickly shrugged off the pack. Harley grabbed Tasha's arm and led her a few feet from where Hot Dog waited with the young girl. "What the hell happened back there? Whose blood is all over you?" "Jesus, Tasha, it's in your hair, on your face." "It's not mine, okay? Right now, that's all the information I can give you. We need to be running, and I mean running, in 15 seconds. Got it?" Harley nodded and followed her back to where Tamara had Tasha's coat out and the soiled one already tucked back into the bag. Tamara handed it to her, but wouldn't meet her gaze. Tasha knew she was absolutely terrified. All she wanted to do was hug the girl and promise her everything would be okay. But she couldn't. She needed Tamara to be afraid for a little while longer. They needed it pushing them the hell away from Davenport. Quickly pulling on her jacket, She grabbed her bag and buckled everything into place. She grabbed Hot Dog's leash. Tasha paused for a moment before handing it over to Tamara instead of wrapping it around her hand. "Why don't you hold on to him until we get out of town? He'll keep you safe. He's a good boy like that," Tasha said. The girl's eyes softened some as she smiled and nodded. "Good," Tasha whispered. "All right, we're going to run this alley until it dead ends, but I'm not risking the main road again. We've got 2 blocks of houses, and we can cut through the backyards. From there, the road turns to 2 lanes, with cropland on the far side. That butts up against the forest and safety again. Listen, we aren't going to sprint this one. This is a marathon, a steady jog, but if you start to get winded, let me know. I don't want us to take a break in the middle of an open field, got it?" They both nodded. Tasha gave Hot Dog a final pat on the head and smiled at the girls before they started off down the alley again. After a few paces, she broke into a slow but steady jog that would be their pace for the next few hours. As they moved, she watched for any signs of life. It kept her distracted from the brutality that had taken place moments before. The blood she'd be able to wash from her clothing, but never her mind. Just 2 hours later, they were stumbling into the forest. She wanted to keep pushing them. She had to, but couldn't. They needed a minute to breathe. As the 2 girls and even Hot Dog collapsed against a fallen pine, Tasha took a seat across from them. They already knew not to chug water. Tasha watched with pride as they sipped on it so as not to make themselves sick. She poured Hot Dog a bowl before taking a drink herself. "I'm really proud of you both," she said. "I'm not kidding. I thought that walk was going to take us twice as long. We just need to push a few more miles to be safe." "Safe?" Tamara hissed. "Safe from what? From those men? What happened back there? Are they going to follow us? They had guns." "No, they aren't going to be following us," Tasha whispered. "Is that because you killed them?" Harley asked, her voice weak. She swallowed. Tasha knew the question would come, but had no idea how to answer it. On the one hand, she didn't want to tell them the gory truth. Tamara was still a child. Yet on the other hand, Tasha hated the idea of lying to them. She wasn't any good at it, and knew the truth would always come out in the end. It was inevitable they would learn the truth about what she'd done. "I had no choice," Tasha croaked. "They were going to rape me. I never meant to hurt them. At first I was just going to knock them both out, but one of them got the drop on me. I got cocky. When he went down, I knew the other one would come after us if I let him go." Silence filled the air. It dragged on for one agonizing minute after another, until Tamara rose and sat down next to Tasha, wrapping a comforting arm around her shoulder. Tears welled in her eyes, as Harley did the same. Even Hot Dog moved between her legs to rest his head on her lap. "It's okay, Tosh," Tamara whispered. "You did what you had to do to protect all of us, and we know it." "Yeah," Harley said. "If you hadn't taken care of them, who knows what they would have done to us. You said it yourself. They were up to no good." "You know, I killed a man once," Tamara muttered. "Last year under the West Point Bridge." They both gasped as the girl continued. "Yeah, it was kind of like what you had to do, Tosh, but he sure got a lot closer. He was a homeless guy, like myself, but I could tell he hadn't been on the streets long. He was laced out on something when he found me. I tried to fight him off, but, well, he was a lot bigger than me." "Tamara," Harley whispered, "you don't have to tell us." She shook her head. "No, I want to. I've never told anyone before. Hell, it didn't even make the news. That's how I knew he was like me, and no one cared. I reckon the city came and got his body because I kept watch on the bridge after that. But I never saw a cruiser or detective. He passed out after. And I was so upset. I just picked up a rock and started in on him. What a monster, Harley hissed. You did the right thing. Screw men like that. And screw the assholes who thought they could do the same to Tasha. I bet they never saw it coming, huh? Listen, I'm not proud of what I did. I don't want you guys thinking measures that drastic are okay. It's okay, Tosh. We know this was an extreme circumstance, the same as mine. You told us when we started this journey that you were in charge, and you'd watch out for us. That's just what you were doing, Tamara said. I killed a cat once, Harley blurted out. It was awful. The poor thing just ran out into the road. See now, Tasha said with a grin. That cat didn't do anything to her. So really, who is the killer here? Oh, great. Now I feel really bad, Harley playfully replied. You get what we're saying, though, right? Things happen in the blink of an eye. You acted on instinct, and we're all happy you did. We never would have made it this far without you, Tasha. You've kept us safe. You've made sure we are fed, and you've gone above and beyond. No one here is going to hold what happened against you, and neither should you. It was them or us, and I, for one, am really happy you picked us. Same here, Tosh, Tamara said. You three are the only family I have. I can't lose you now. Tasha couldn't find the words as the tears fell. She wrapped her arms tighter around the young girl as she tried to keep it together. What a terrible thing to be bonded over. Killing men who they thought could take anything they wanted. Still, the story touched her, knowing how hard it must have been for Tamara to share with them. Tasha knew at that moment that she'd done the right thing. She would never let anyone hurt the child ever again. Minutes later, they were loading back up and setting off into the forest at a slow jog.